Same, you get a say in this too. Well, that's it, boys. One of you has got to side with the North, and the other gets to fight for the South. Once you make up your minds, there'll be no changing them later. So I want you both to go off somewhere alone and think this over. Get down on your knees to God Almighty if you have to, but make sure you make a decision you can live with for the rest of your lives, the same as Duncan and Robert did over in Scotland, the same as William and John did back in South Carolina. Clete and Dent Slater went off together and talked over what their grandfather had told them. Clete, the older at 19, wanted to join one of the companies then being recruited in Hallettsville, the seat for Lavaca County, and fight for the South. Dent, having just turned 16, could only enlist as a drummer, but that idea held no appeal for him. It was fight or stay home. The brothers made a pact that no matter which side won the war, Glengarry would always be home for the brother on the losing side. Clete went to war. Already a superb horseman, Clete Slater took his horse, a gray Appaloosa colt, and joined Company F of Terry's Texas Rangers, more properly known as the 8th Texas Cavalry. His unit was assigned to General Sidney Johnston's western branch of the Confederate Army. After their first engagement of the war, the regiment was reorganized, and Slater was promoted to corporal because Burr Joyner had been elected 3rd lieutenant of the company. Slater was captured at the Battle of Shiloh, but he later escaped and joined John Hunt Morgan's cavalry, where he learned much about guerrilla warfare. As the war took its toll on Morgan's men, Slater moved up in rank, being elected lieutenant, then captain. When the Union armies had all but ended the war by late March of '65, Slater decided that the war in the East was lost, so he led a small detachment of fellow Texans westward to join General Edmund Kirby Smith's Trans-Mississippi Command, dodging Union patrols at every turn. But before they could reach the Mississippi, General Lee surrendered to Grant at Appomattox. Hearing the news about Lee and General Johnston's subsequent surrender in North Carolina and General Taylor's surrender in Alabama, Slater and his men rode into New Orleans and gave themselves up. Like many Southerners, they took the oath of allegiance to the Union with their fingers crossed, and were given paroles that said they were now loyal citizens of the United States. A decent Union officer explained the terms of Lee's surrender to them. They could keep their sidearms and horses, but not their rifles and shotguns. After handing over those weapons, Slater headed home, but the other men rode north for Tennessee for what they called one last raid in the vicinity of Nashville, meaning they planned to visit some girls they had known when they were fighting in that area. By May of '65, the Union Army had yet to occupy all of Texas, as General Kirby Smith's Trans-Mississippi Army, although scattered, was still a force to be reckoned with. A few units along the Rio Grande continued to struggle, and a battle was fought as recently as May 12th and 13th at Palmito Ranch, with Texans defeating a small Union detachment. News of the victory was slow to spread across the state, but it made little difference in most areas. The war was lost, and the Yankees were setting up shop in a different town every day. One of those towns that was occupied early on was Hallettsville, but Clete Slater was unaware of all this when he rode toward Glengarry on that hot, steamy evening. Chapter 1. When Dugald Slater built the main house of Glengarry Plantation in 1839, he wisely left as many trees in place as possible, and where there was insufficient shade from the black persimmons, cedar elms, hackberries, and live oaks, he planted southern magnolias imported from Louisiana. As the years passed, and the subtropical gales, remnants of the annual hurricane season, destroyed the original foliage, he replaced the lost trees with more magnolias, until the 2-story white mansion was so surrounded by the Gulf giants that only the red brick chimneys, one at each end of the peaked roof, rose above the treetops. Still more than a mile away from Glengarry, Cletus Slater, the lineal heir to the Georgia-style estate, couldn't yet see his birthplace in the twilight as he approached it on horseback along the road from Columbus to Hallettsville. Even so, he knew it was there. In the distance, yet close. Closer. The white flowers of his grandfather's magnolias were in full bloom, and their sweet perfume wafted gently across the broad valley plain, welcoming him. And the idea of finally coming home after 3.5 long years at war hastened his heart to beat at a faster clip. He nudged the heels of his scuffed knee-high cavalry boots into the ribs of Nimbus, the silver-gray Appaloosa that had gone to war with him as a colt and was returning a magnificent stallion. He urged the horse into a loping gait. A cranial rush of excitement tingled downward through Slater's